Welcome to In Her Voice, a podcast created for women who listen to and live by their deepest wisdom, their inner voice. This was made for you, the woman who feels pulled to more, to lead, to create, to dream, and to be a world changer. My name is Kelly Covert, and I am an inner voice coach. Join me here each week as we explore what it means to reach for your inspired potential, all while honoring your worthiness each and every day. Hello, everyone. This is Kelly, and I just want to say thank you for being here. I have a wonderful guest on today, and I feel like this conversation is so timely because we're really digging into mental health awareness and breaking the stigma around mental health. And I think now more than ever, with all that we have going on in our world, we must be willing to ask for help if we're feeling depressed or if we're feeling like we have anxiety. And I think that also with that comes acknowledging that this is not a made up problem. This is not a problem that is just in your head, like people want to say, but it is real and it is debilitating. And there is help for you if this is something that you suffer with. You do not have to suffer. That's what I want to say. If you have one takeaway from this interview today, it's that there is help and that you are not required to suffer, and certainly not required to suffer alone. So Matana Jacobs is on with me today, and Matana is an amazing businesswoman. She has all of these accolades and things that she does, but she went through the ringer with her own mental health and really almost died. I mean, she hit rock bottom and she asked for help. She asked for help and she asked and she asked and she asked, and she's better. And she's decided to dedicate a big portion of her time to helping other people that are going through the same thing that she did. And so she has a podcast that is called Hope to Recharge, which is dedicated to helping break the stigma around mental health. And the intention of her show is to bring hope and community to those who are personally struggling with depression and anxiety, or have a loved one who is struggling with depression and anxiety. And so I really think that this is an important topic right now. And I want to remind you that if you or someone you know is experiencing this, you do not have to do it alone. Please reach out for help. Please reach out for support. And in the show notes, I'm going to include some links and some phone numbers of places that you can connect with if you are really struggling and feel alone and feel like you need help. So let's get right to the interview with Matana Jacobs. Matana Jacobs, welcome to In Her Voice. I'm so pleased to have you today.
Thank you so much for having me. Every podcast that I could go and share my story gives me energy to continue fighting.
Yeah, for sure. And that's interesting that you talk about energy, because when I am doing podcast interviews, I feel so energized through this connection. Even though we can't see each other, we're not in the same room, I feel your energy, and I'm just really grateful that we have this reciprocity today.
Yes.
The energy going back and forth. So I'm so excited to have you here. And we were talking before we started recording about what you are really passionate about, and that's bringing awareness to mental health. Yes. And this is it's interesting because in a lot of the interviews that I've had, women have come on and they've shared their stories and struggles with mental health, but maybe that wasn't the primary topic that we were talking about, that we were focusing on during the episode. So I'm really excited to give time here because I think it's so valuable and so important, and it's not something that should be brushed under the rug or hidden in the closet. Like, we really need to shine a light on it. So why don't you just start with telling us about your story and your struggle and your victory?
Yes. Thank you. I just want to touch upon the fact that how important it is, and just an aha moment that I had yesterday. Before I go into my story, because I'm afraid that I'm going to forget to share this, but you are so right how important it is. And because I'm so much in the industry now of mental health awareness, and there's so many blogs and posts and community services and organizations and nonprofits for mental health awareness. And I'm like, okay, we're breaking the stigma. This is great. There are going to be less suicides. There'll be more happy people. And I'm really feeling positive. And my podcast is on mental health awareness. And because we're recording now in May, even though this will probably be released after Mental Health Awareness Month, so I made a project on my podcast that I'm going to interview anybody that wants to stay anonymous. That they will have a platform to share their story, because I feel a lot of people live in a secret because they're afraid of stigma. And I thought this would be the best idea. And everybody's going to want to share their story. I had a lot of people reach out to me, and a lot of people freaking out the day of or afterwards. Did I share too much? What are people going to think about me? Oh my God, is this right? Is this wrong? And I'm like, wow, the stigma is still so live and so strong, you know? And I feel like every person that shares their story because they feel comfortable, and I always say you have to feel comfortable, you have to know where you're at, you have to know your support, but every person that shares their story is really helping break the stigma of silence, of pain, because there's so much pain out there. And yesterday was that big like, oh my God, we're still so far behind in the awareness of what it's like to share. So I just wanted to bring that out. And by you having me, it's another opportunity for me to say, okay, we could do this. We can break the stigma. We can share. We can be vulnerable. We can be ourselves without being labeled. So thank you.
Yeah, well, you're welcome. And I just want to touch into that vulnerability piece. When you were sharing that the people who came on your podcast were worried the next day, you know, it reminded me of Brene Brown and how she talks about vulnerability hangovers.
Yes.
And, you know, the cure to that is to let go shame and to shine a light on what we feel like needs to stay hidden. And I think that that's exactly what we're doing today. So I'm really looking forward to this. Yeah.
And thank you for reminding me about Brene Brown's topic about the hangover, because that's exactly what was going on. And it completely I'm like all about Brene Brown. Like if she is my mentor in life. She is like, everything I do is because she helps me just be who I am. So, and that's, I'm so grateful that you pointed that out, because I was feeling very, like scared. Did I do the wrong thing? Am I empowering them, or am I hurting them? Like, it's such a sensitive place.
Yeah.
But there's, when you can put a name to it, so it makes sense, right? So thank you. I'm so happy. I'm so happy, because really last night I did 6 interviews yesterday of stories of people sharing their story for the first time. And everybody was emailing me and texting me, take that out. Maybe I shouldn't, will I recognize my voice? And I'm like, oh my God, did I do the right thing? But that's what they're going through. So thank you for that. So I'm going to deep dive into my story. So I'll just give you a little bit of a background. I'm 43 years old. I was born in Peoria, Illinois, but we moved to Israel when I was 2 years old. 2 years old, I'm Jewish Orthodox, and my parents were very idealistic, and they're like, we're going to go live in the Jewish country. And I was the 3rd child at the time. And my parents left everything behind and moved to Israel, and we really did the transition. It was not an easy transition because the cultures are so different. And we moved 40 years ago when Israel was not developed and everything was so different. And we really became a part of the ultra-Orthodox community. I grew up very different than everyone. I always felt ashamed of who I am because we were American. And we can go into a whole 3-series podcast about that. But I was who I was. I was shy. I was quiet. I was a rule follower. I never broke a rule. Always always doing my homework, always showing up the way you're supposed to show up. My friends were all good girls. And when I was 18, I'm like, okay, this is a little bit too strict for me. Like, I need to just feel myself. Who am I? And I got a position in Hong Kong. Can you imagine, from Israel to Hong Kong?
It's a big transition.
Yes. I was 18 and I went with someone that I knew maybe for a few days, because I met her in a hospital. It was a whole other story. She was telling me that she's going to be a teacher in Hong Kong. We moved to Hong Kong for a year. We were teachers in the Jewish community. Best year of my life. I suddenly started understanding life and having a voice and being in touch with my feelings and who I am. And I'm like, wow, this is so exciting. Life is so fun. Before it was nice. I had come from a very, very loving, kind family, like amazing. We really grew up very poor. I'm one of 6. My father worked his whole life as a teacher, trying his best to support, and he did a great job. But we never had luxury. I never had my own shoes. I always took hand-me-downs from my sisters. I never had new clothes. I never traveled anywhere without a bus. If I needed to go anywhere, it was only on a bus. We never owned a car. For the first 7 years of my life, we didn't have a phone in the house. Like, real poverty. And when I traveled to Hong Kong, I'm like, wow, this is fun. This is exciting. And I came back to Israel after a year, and I started working. And then I went into software development, one of the largest software development companies in Israel. Very fast, I became project manager there. I was managing over 30 people when I was like 23 or 24. Loving life, traveling the world, Africa, Australia, New Zealand, China, Thailand, all of Europe. I was just living life, making a lot of money, living life. And in the Orthodox world, it's very common to get married when you're like 19, 20, 21, 22. Like you finish high school, you decide what you want to do in life, and then you get married. And I didn't want to do that. I'm like, I'm not ready for that. I don't even know what I want in life. So I was almost 26 when I met my husband from America. Thank God it was from America, because the culture was a little bit more what I wanted. And I moved to America. I left everything. I left my high-powered job, which I loved. Had a tremendous amount of network of friends and just people that I knew from life. And I left everything and moved to America. My whole family's in Israel. I started my life in America and I was excited. I love my husband and I'm like, okay, let's do this. I always said that if and when I get married, I don't want to have a full-time career and motherhood. It would be too much for me. I get very overwhelmed and it's either all or nothing by me. So if I give it to the work, I won't be able to give it at home. And I was very, very happy with my decision. And it was easy for me to start my life in America, started from fresh. And we had a great life. We had a child, then another child, then another child. In between, we traveled a tremendous amount to Israel, to Europe. We were really having a great life. What could be wrong? Life is wonderful, right? Mm-hmm. And my family comes visits me in New York. Exactly 10 years ago from next week, May 28th or 29th. It was a Jewish holiday, and I just came back right before the Jewish holiday. The day before, I came back from Israel. Every time there was like a family reunion or a wedding or some kind of a celebration, I went to Israel. This time I went on my own. I went for a few days and I came back, and the first night of the holiday, it was a 3-day holiday. So imagine Thanksgiving for 3 days. Mm-hmm. Okay. Lots of company, 6 big meals, a lot going on. And I prepared for everything. And I was a huge entertainer. I still am. I love cooking. I love entertaining. And I had a lot of people coming. But the first night I said, I'm going to be so jet lagged. I'm not going to have anyone that night. I go to sleep on the couch. I fall asleep in the middle of the meal in the couch, middle of dinner. I wake up at 2:00 in the morning, and it's a holiday that you study the Bible the whole night. And my husband was up studying the Bible, so he happened to have been there. And I wake up and I'm like, my husband's name is Ari. I said, Ari, I'm not feeling well. I'm dying. And he laughs because I'm a hypochondriac. And he's like, you're not dying, you're jet lagged. I said, no, I'm dying. And he's like, no, sweetie, really, you're jet lagged. I said, no, please don't tell me that. Please call 911. I'm dying. And it took me, I would say, 20 minutes till I was not responding anymore. Shaking, throwing up, sweating, just out of control. And he calls 911. I wake up, there's 6 or 7 EMT people around me. They're taking, and then all I hear is they're announcing something about cardiac arrest, get the ambulance. Before I know it, I'm in the hospital. I have 3 little kids at home, 3 tiny little kids at home. It's 3:20 in the morning. I had to go on my own because we don't have family in America. So we didn't have anybody to say, come take care of the kids. Yeah, we're alone. We're literally alone. So I went alone. The good thing is that it was the 911. The Jewish community has their own private 911. And it was a lot of men that I knew from my community that drove me. So I felt like comfortable, like they're not going to leave me until I'm going to be safe.
Yeah.
And the whole time in the ambulance, they're like, Mrs. Jacobs, don't speak. And I'm like, am I going to die? I'm going to die. And the whole time on the way to the hospital, I'm like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm dying. I don't want to die. I have children. We get there. They run scans, everything. MRI, EKG, PET scans, blood tests, everything you can imagine. And at 7:30 or 8 o'clock in the morning, the doctor comes into me and he's like, hi, Mrs. Jacobs, how are you feeling? And they gave me some medicine. I didn't know what they were doing. They gave me blood. They gave me an IV. They gave me medicine. And by the time he came at 7:30, I was feeling a little bit better. Like I felt weak, but I didn't feel like I was dying. He said, I have good news. You're all okay. You can go home. And I look at him and I'm like, I'm not okay. I'm not okay. Are you kidding me? I'm not okay. I said, I am dying either from a heart attack or maybe I have something in my brain, maybe a blood disorder. Like I already named every disease out there. And he's like, no, what you had was a panic attack. I said, a what? He said, a panic attack. I said, a panic attack? I was dying. I wasn't just like, when you grow up, you're like, oh, I was so nervous, I had a panic attack. So you think like a panic attack is just like when you're like a little bit anxious and nervous?
Yeah. No,
exactly. I said, no, doctor, you don't understand. I wasn't speaking and I was hallucinating and I was crying and my heart was racing. He's like, yeah, Mrs. Jacobs, that was a panic attack.
So I just want to pause you right here because I think this is something about mental health and mental illness that's really shocking to me when I first found this out, is that oftentimes a mental illness does show up in a physical way. Mm-hmm. And I think it's so fascinating that they're like, yeah, you had a panic attack. See you later.
Exactly.
As though that weren't as important is, that was somehow better than if you were having a heart attack.
So profound. And yes, but in a way, a heart attack can kill you really on the spot. Mm-hmm. But they know one of the major things they say to people all the time, panic attack never killed anyone. And I think in a way it's reassuring, but one of the most annoying things to hear when you're in the middle of it.
It's dismissive.
Very. Yeah. And not only that, you feel death. Like I felt death. I literally said to my husband, get the evil eye away from me. I'm going to die. Like I was like holding on for dear life. Mm. And it's so profound what you said, because we're not going to die from a panic attack. But it definitely won't lead to a good place if we continue having it. And that's what really happened. Mm-hmm. So they sent me home with a ton of literature about how to deal with a panic attack, how to breathe, what is anxiety. The 3-day holiday came and went. I did not sleep an ounce, like not even a minute the whole time, because I was afraid that every time I'll fall asleep, I'll die. Yeah. The anxiety was high. And before I knew, I was having panic attack after panic attack after panic attack. And I kept on calling the 911. And then there was a sweet guy that was in our community that says, listen, I also suffer. He was the sweetest guy from the EMT. And he said, I also suffer from panic attacks. Instead of calling the whole 911, just call me and I could breathe with you. And I'm going to walk you through this. And he was like an angel, because part of being with a panic attack, you want to feel safe that you're not dying, even though everybody's going to tell you that you're not dying. And when you're with an EMT guy, that you feel a little bit safer. Like if you stop breathing, they'll give you oxygen. They'll take your blood,
right.
you know, like
you're not
you rationalize it, even though it makes no sense really.
So how did you begin to realize that you needed treatment? How did you begin to work on healing?
So I reached, after about 2-3 months, I reached rock bottom that I wasn't leaving my bed. I wasn't eating and I wasn't sleeping. It was so bad that I could hardly speak. And people were showering me. People were feeding me like milkshake, just swallow this one thing, you know. And my big goal was to just drink a half a the natural the drinks that you know that you have at least your vitamins, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So I said, if I drink a half, I'm not going to die, you know. That was what I was doing. And then when I reached rock bottom, and very common with anxiety, depression comes together. And they like feed into each other. And I went into a deep depression, a real deep depression. And I just didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to talk to anybody. And I came from a very active person, loving life, adoring life, to being debilitated. And I couldn't take care of my children. I couldn't literally couldn't get out of bed. And I remember calling my mom and I said, get on a plane and figure out what's wrong with me. I need to heal. I said, I have 3 children, get on a plane and take me to all the doctors that you can imagine. Find a cure to this. And I kept on saying, I was good before, I want to go back to there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, you know, one thing I want to highlight about that I think is very interesting is that I think people who have not experienced mental illness themselves, or haven't experienced a loved one that suffers through that they think that depression and anxiety are only circumstantial. Mm-hmm. So, you know, if your life is crazy and you have a lot of stress, then of course you're going to have anxiety. And, you know, if something really bad happens, then that might push you into depression. But I think it's really important to highlight that, I mean, you had a great life that you loved. And so mental illness literally affects the chemistry of your brain. Absolutely. And it can come on without any sort of, you know, external circumstances that cause it to happen.
You're so profound. By the way, I could speak to you for hours.
Ditto.
I love the way you're picking up on this, but that's exactly it. There's always an underlying trauma, something somewhere that we suppressed, but it's not like someone has to die. It doesn't mean that you were raped. It doesn't mean that you went through a big episode in your life. It means that you didn't deal with a lot and you suppressed different things. And it's a small, tiny little imbalance that will just push you out of the edge without you even knowing that you were on the edge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so what would you say to people who find themselves in the position that you are? Because it seems to me like it took you many months to even get to the place of acknowledging, oh, hey, I got to do something about this.
Acknowledgement is the number one step. And what I was talking about stigma before, people don't want to acknowledge. People are afraid to accept the fact that they are struggling with mental illness because there's such a stigma against it. Oh, I'm going to be the crazy person. Oh, I'm going to lose my job. Or my husband's going to divorce me. Oh, no one's going to marry me. All these thoughts go through our head and we're like, we don't want to be that person. We're going to fight it. And the more we fight it, the quicker the breakdown comes because we're suppressing all these emotions and stuff that have to come out. Mm-hmm. So the faster you acknowledge and the faster you say, you know what, I'm going to own this feeling. I'm depressed. I'm going to go find out what I could do. What's going on? What led me to this? what do I need to change in order? It could be medication. It could be chemical imbalance. By me, I know that it was my birth control. I know 100% because was on a new birth control. Birth controls were always something very iffy by me. I was always very emotional with it. I'm very sensitive, and I was on a double dose of a birth control.
Interesting.
And yeah, so I know that that's what ticked me off. But there was so much garbage inside me in terms of my emotions that I wasn't dealing with. So both of them together just made me collapse, and I couldn't tolerate my emotions. Couldn't tolerate the unspoken pain that I was holding inside me that I didn't even know that I had.
Yeah. Well, and I think I'm so glad that you're talking with transparency about medicine, because I think too, people are like, oh, well, I'll just, work on the one part. Like, I'll just go to a therapist and work on the emotional piece and I'll get better. Or the other side of that, I'll just take a pill and I'll be better. And it's really about that sort of two-sided approach. Like, you can't really heal completely just going down one of those paths. Wouldn't you agree?
1,000,000,000%. And I always say, my tagline, people say that this is my tagline: everybody needs to find their cocktail. There's not one cocktail that fits all. And it could be meditation, it could be yoga, it could be exercise, it could be boundaries with toxic people around you. It could be literally environmental, what you're eating, what you're thinking about, what are you reading? Are you sleeping enough? What is birth control? Other medicines that we're taking maybe be affecting us. When was the last time we gave birth? All kinds of things that affect who we are. And we have to really zoom into our situation and say, okay, what can I do and what will work for me in order to solve this? And there is no one size fits all, but you must try many, 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 many things and put them together. For me, I tried holistic. I tried EFT. I tried healers. I tried different programs online. Any kind of therapy you can imagine I did. Medicine. And then my dream was to get off the medicine. So it was everything.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, what's really coming up for me is that when you have a disease that manifests in your physical body, that say is because of heart disease or cancer, you go to the doctor and they give you a test and they say, yes, you have this.
Right.
And here's how we're going to treat it.
Right.
And there's no blood test for mental illness.
Right.
And also, like you said, it's not one size fits all treatment. And so there's a lot of experimentation, and I expect a lot of frustration and learning how to be patient.
Yes.
So how did you and how do you continue to balance that?
So one of the reasons that I started my whole passion to paying it forward was because I had support. And I think that it's almost impossible to heal from mental health without a tremendous amount of support and guidance.
So wait, I'm going to interrupt you right there because I think it's really important. This means all of you who are listening, you have to be willing to ask for help.
Yes.
And that's something that tends to be a sticky point for really smart, amazing women, like the women that listen to this podcast, because we want to be able to do it all ourselves.
Yes.
So there's nothing wrong with asking for help. Continue.
Not only that, when you ask for help, I want you to know that every time I asked for help, people were like, wow, you are so courageous. You're incredible. Yes. And suddenly everybody's sharing with you that they were depressed, their husband was depressed, their child was depressed, their mother was bipolar. You suddenly hear that everybody's dealing with something and everybody's hiding it really well. But when you start sharing, you suddenly feel not alone, and you feel hope, and you feel like, oh, look, they have bipolar, they're struggling by bipolar, and they're okay, they're functioning. Yeah. Oh, wow, that's a big CEO of a company, and they might be dealing with schizophrenia or whatever it is, or depression. And you suddenly you realize that it's not as big as our mind tends to tell us. And part of the disease is that our mind is telling us horrible stories in order to bring us down. And then we go deep into the depression. So you must ask for help. No one will ever look at you. And I'm going to tell this with conviction. No one that loves you and cares about you will ever tell you that you are weak for asking for help. If they do tell you that, they're not really there for you. And that was a big aha moment for me.
Mm-hmm. So you had the support. You continue to have the support,
yes,
as well. What else came into play for you to balance out as you were going through your healing? Like, what were the things that you really leaned on?
And what I still lean on. So the first thing that I went to was a psychiatrist, because I realized that I waited too long. It would be very hard for me to return to whoever I was before without medication to balance me, because I was already in the depths of depression. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you have to get on medication to get off of it, because when you're so numb, you don't have the wherewithal to work on your emotions. So you have to like numb the numbness, feel a little bit fake okay, work with a half mind, and then you can start going and digging into therapy. And I went to holistic healers. I went to a lot of therapy. I did EFT, EMDR, and a lot of talk therapy. And my medication really, really, really helped me. One thing I'm going to tell everybody, and I tell everybody this: if you think of going on medication, please, please, please go to a good psychiatrist, because medication can either kill you or literally make you thrive. Mm-hmm. And the first time I went to a psychiatrist, he was awful. He put me on a medication, did not track me. I was suicidal the first night. Mm. And then I went to a different one. I called my aunt that's a therapist in Manhattan. I'm like, give me the top psychiatrist. Yes, I spent $500 to see him, but my husband's like, this is brain surgery. We're not going to take somebody that doesn't know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And he sat with me and he explained to me what is going on in my brain. Why is it broken now? And what can we do to repair it? And he told me the chemicals that are missing and what are we going to do to improve it. Understanding is such a big part of healing. The fact that we understand what's going on in our brain is so helpful for us to say, okay, fine, if we connect the dots there and if we work on this and we work on that, we can heal.
Yeah.
So it was a combination of that. I went to yoga every single night. Every single night I went to yoga. Mm-hmm. A ton of books of self-help. And I want to just wrap this all up with all the things that I did. I want to say one of the things that you have to have is grit, because you're going to fall a million times. Mm-hmm. But when you rise back up and when you feel great, and I'm talking 10 years, this next week is going to be 10 years since my first panic attack. And I was on medication for 3 or 4 years, different medication, different cocktails. And I had my roller coaster then. But when I got off and I was able to let go of hurt, I was able to look things in the eye that I was not even aware that was holding me back. I was able to let go. I was able to know that I'm perfect even though I'm not perfect. I'm okay. I'm worthy, you know? That was my healing. And my joy of today would have never been on the level that I have joy today. Even if I didn't have my crash, I would never get to where I am today in terms of joy and that satisfaction of life.
Oh, I love that so much, and that is true regardless of the experiences you've had in the past. It could be mental health. It could be any sort of trauma. Right. It could be disappointment. It could be failure. But recognizing that is what makes us who we are.
Yes.
Like, I need every single piece of that to have happened for me to be here right now talking to you.
Right.
And I just feel like that is really, to me, what true gratitude is. And I know that gratitude is something that you practice in your own life and that you preach it and you practice it. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your gratitude practice and why it's so important to you?
So one of the first books that I was picking up on any book that I can find on self-awareness, because I didn't have self-awareness. I just had fun and excitement in life. And the first book was The Secret and The Power and the Magic, those sets of books. And I'm like, wait, what? We can control our outcome? You mean we can control our mindset? We can control what happens to us in life in a way? Like we can see a pattern? And they talk about the practice of gratitude, noticing what's working, hyper focus on what's working versus what's not working. And I'm like, I love this. Oh my God. You mean I can attract good? I'm going to do this. And I started reading all about gratitude, and I bought every book out under the sun about gratitude, and I watched every video on gratitude. And I started practicing it. In the beginning, it felt so awkward to me. Now, I grew up with a father that was all about gratitude, but to others. Like if someone does something kind, you for sure you think. And even people that no one ever thinks. Like he was the big thing. You thank a bus driver. You go personally and say, thank you for driving me. And he used to give out candies to bus drivers. So to thank others, that was a big thing for me. I grew up with that. But to thank the universe, for me, I thank God, because I'm a God. I believe in God. I was thinking, God, wow, I have a husband that's supporting me. My toes are moving today, even though I can't move out of bed. I opened my eyes. I could swallow. I swallowed one sip of water. I'm grateful. And I took those tiny, tiny, tiny steps. And gratitude was one of the biggest practices for my recovery. When you don't feel a victim, when you feel that you are blessed, even with all the struggles, and some struggles that can melt your heart, and you can't even hold space for some people's struggles. But when you realize that we really have things that are working, and we have so much that is okay, and we hyper zoom into that, everything shifts. Everything shifts.
In an instant, really. Like, that's how powerful gratitude is. Like you can like be in a bad mood and feel like everything's going wrong, and all it takes is like 1 second of acknowledging something that you're grateful for. And it's really hard to stay in that bad mood if you're doing that.
Absolutely. And also neuroscientists look at brains that are depressed, and they look at brains that are depressed and practice gratitude, and they see an actual change in the brain when we practice gratitude. If we want to do neuroplasticity to change where we are with mental illness, it starts with gratitude. The smallest thing. It doesn't have to be, oh my God, I'm so grateful I have this beautiful house and everything. No, I am grateful that I just took this breath and I'm still alive.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. It's so good. So if anyone is listening today and they feel like what they're experiencing might be a sign of a mental illness, who should they reach out to? What should they do? What is their first step? I want everyone to feel supported and safe right here now.
Okay, so first of all, you have to know, who do you feel safe sharing the story with, what you're going through, without feeling judged. And you have to know who those people are. And sometimes it's not your spouse, and sometimes it's not your mother, and sometimes it's not your sister. Sometimes it's your neighbor, and sometimes it's another person you meet somewhere, and you just click and you can share. And so you have to know who you can share it with. And everybody has someone they can share it with that will take them to the next step. So thank God there's so many resources online. Go to the library and grab a book on self-help. What is mental health? What is depression? What is anxiety? What is bipolar? Just give yourself some knowledge. If you need, go to a therapist. If you can. Not everybody can afford therapy. So there's community support groups. There's so many resources, even online. There's on Facebook so many groups to just feel not alone. And that is the beginning of healing. And when we start talking about what we're feeling, we get the direction of where we need to go. It's just like that. We just get this clarity, but you have to want it so badly.
Well, and I think, and no one will be surprised what I have to say about this, but I think that clarity comes from allowing your whole self to be heard, right?
Yes.
And that can be hard when you feel like there's something wrong with your whole self or wrong with part of yourself. And so I just want to say to everyone, your whole self is needed and necessary. And when you listen to that still small voice, it will guide you in the right direction. So Matana, I want to end today by asking you a question I ask all of my guests, and that is, in your life right now, what is your inner voice saying to you?
Be in the moment. Be
That's
in the
good.
moment, yes. And I work hard on it, and it's something that I believe that led me to my mental crisis because I was not in the moment. I wasn't present. I was always thinking of the next big thing. I wasn't just here now.
Yeah. Oh, so fantastic. So why don't you tell everyone a little bit about how they can get in touch with you? Let us know what your podcast is and how to find that, because I think that some people will really want to connect with you.
Thank you. So I'm on all the platforms, on any of the audio platforms. It's hopetorecharge.com is my podcast. You can either find me on Spotify, Stitchers, iTunes, hopetorecharge.com. There's a Hope to Recharge Facebook community that we just discuss stuff, mental health. People feel safe to share. I also have a mastermind for people that want to heal, like that really have the grit and they like, okay, we want to work at this, even though we know, I call it the mental health gym because it's really a workout. So we have a mastermind with that, but everything is on the website. So you can find everything in one place, hopetorecharge.com.
And I will be sure to put that on in the show notes. And so you can just go to whatever podcast app you're listening to, and it should be right there.
Yeah.
Matana, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being vulnerable with us. You're setting such a good example of how we heal and how we shine light, even on the things that maybe we're not so proud of. And I really appreciate you being here today.
Thank you for having me, and thank you guys for listening. And just know you are enough and you are worthy and you deserve the best life. So go get it.
I hope you enjoyed that interview. And I want to say to anyone who is listening to this who might be struggling with depression and anxiety, you are not alone and there is help for you. And so if you are in a mental health crisis right now, there are free resources for you. And I just want to list one here, and there are many. And this is just one that I saw that resonated with me. And it is the crisis text line. You can text the word HOME, HOME, to 741-741. And there is someone there, a crisis counselor, who can talk with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they can get you connected with the help that you need so you do not have to struggle. So again, you text the word HOME, HOME, to 741-741, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. I also want to remind you that the way you live your life can help support your mental health. So now I want to talk to those of you who are not in crisis, but feel the weight of what is going on in the world in your soul. And I am with you. I am with you there. I feel it. I look at the news and I feel it. I get emails from my kids' school and I feel it. I look on Facebook and I feel it. It's heavy right now. And one thing that we can do is we can create habits that support us feeling worthy and support our success and support our fulfillment and support our joy and happiness each and every day. We can only control the things that we have control over, and that is our thoughts and our actions and our reactions. And so part of that in the actions column is our habits. So what are you doing each and every day that supports you, that fills you up, that protects your energy, that grounds you into listening into your inner voice? What are those things? What are the habits, these small little actions that you're taking every day that help you feel the way you want to feel? If you're not even sure what those are, or if you know what you want them to be, but have yet to be able to really follow through on them and stick with them, I encourage you to check out my upcoming habits workshop. So this is the Create the Life You Want, a monthly habits workshop. We're going to meet together on Zoom on Friday, July 31st at 7 p.m. Eastern. And this is a workshop where we will spend time going deep, meditating, journaling, and listening to our inner voice about what small things we can do each and every day, what habits will support our desires. So we're going to get clear on the desires, and we're going to get clear on the habits. And then before the workshop is complete, we make a habit tracker together. So I'm going to make sure that by the end of the workshop, you have a tool that will help you stay accountable to you. And that is really, really powerful. So I hope that you will join us, everyone who will be coming on July 31st. You can register for the workshop at kellycovert.com/habits, and I'll put the link in the show notes. Once again, that's kellycovert.com/habits. And I look forward to being with you and spending time with you as we create habits that help us move forward with joy and fulfillment and worthiness. Remember, we need you in this world, showing up as you, doing your work, being in control of you. You are worthy.